My name is Ellen Holste, and I'm the Community Program Manager at Pierce Cedar Creek Institute. I tried to give you a little bit of the Institute. I'm disappearing a little, though. We're going to go over today a little bit about some plants that make us itch. So plants that are common that make us itch, we usually think of poison ivy first, but there is also poison sumac in Michigan. Poison oak is another one that people tend to think about, but in Michigan, at least according to Michigan Flora, we don't really have much for poison oak. You may have seen it. I'm just saying Michigan Flora does not include it as one of our species that we have here. But we definitely have, I know at the Institute and in many people's backyards, have poison ivy as well as poison sumac. So tonight I want to take you on a little hike. So if you feel comfortable doing so, close your eyes and imagine you're either at the Institute or walking or hiking along your favorite trail. All right, so close those eyes. Let's think about that trail. What does it look like? And in a second, I'm going to tell you to open your eyes. All right, open your eyes. And we should be there. Some of the sayings for poison ivy are hairy vine, no friend of mine, leaves of three, let it be, berries white, take flight. Oh, I see a vine. It looks like it's a hairy vine. The hairs look kind of fine to me. Let's look at the leaves. The leaves, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, and the one leaf has a longer middle stem. So definitely poison ivy. We'll keep going and see what else we find. I see a hairy vine. The hairs look kind of fine to me. Let's look at the leaves. How many leaflets do you see? You should see 1, 2, 3. And the other thing I see, there's some flowers. If you look up farther, you might be able to see some more flowers starting. But be careful, this hairy vine, I'm not gonna touch. Most people say hairy vine, no friend of mine, but that is not necessarily always the case. So here's another vine. And you may see some have only 3 leaflets, but others have 5. Again, this vine is hairy, but this is definitely not poison ivy. This is Virginia creeper. Oh, here's a fun one. So you can see starting to take root from the bottom even. They're coming up, coming up. Oh, there might even be 2 different vines here. So I see this one. Looks like there are 3 leaflets here, but look at that middle leaflet right here. That middle leaflet doesn't have a longer stem, right where it would attach to the other 2 leaflets. And if I look down farther, I see more leaflets on these 2. So this one would most likely be, and by most likely I mean it is, this is Virginia creeper. But if I look on the same tree a little farther down, look at these. These are different than the ones I saw up top. I have 1, 2, 3 leaflets again. But look at that middle one. It's got a longer stem, or petiole they call it, where it attaches to the other 2 leaflets. It also has what I like to say is a thumb. There's its thumb on the leaflets. This is definitely poison ivy right next to Virginia creeper. The other cool thing I can see on this one is the way that Virginia creeper attaches. It's different than the way poison ivy will attach. So it'll attach by these little pads. They're circular pads. Poison ivy will not have those pads. So Virginia creeper will have those circular pads. Poison ivy will just have little thin hairs. So that's another way to tell that if you get a lot of little leaves that are 3 leaflets that kind of look like poison ivy, if they've got those pads, they're not. Uh-oh, I see a hairy vine. If we follow the hairy vine up, do you think it will be Virginia creeper, poison ivy, or something else? Let's check. Do you see how thick those vine tendrils are? Well, if I look on some of the leaves here, some of them do have 3 leaflets. Let's get a better angle on that. But others have a few more. So here we do have Virginia creeper. And the signs that tell me that it's Virginia creeper, not only that some of them do have 5 leaflets, but the middle leaflet here, the petiole or the stem is not as long as poison ivy. And then if I look over at the vine, these vine tendrils are a lot thicker than what you'd get for poison ivy. They almost look spaghetti-like versus thin hairs. So not all hairy vines are scary. Poison ivy can be basically herbaceous or on the ground as well as a vine. You can really see this right here. So right here we've got poison ivy, there's Virginia creeper, more Virginia creeper, oh, more Virginia creeper, and another poison ivy. Look at that mitten on some of those poison ivies. You don't always see that. And not all plants that have 3 leaflets are poison ivy. We'll see some other plants later that have 3 leaflets like these, but are not necessarily poison ivy. Let's keep going. Can you find the poison ivy? You've got a few different options here. All right, so let's zoom in and see what we have. This 1, 2, 3 leaves. They're a little fuzzy right here, but still 1, 2, 3 leaves, and the leaflet is longer in the center. Again, 1, 2, 3 leaves, longer leaflet in the center. Got a lot of Virginia creeper here. You can tell by the 5 leaves. But in amongst the Virginia creeper, do you see it? There it is. There's your poison ivy. As well as there, and there, and there, and there. A lot of poison ivy. So this is one of our lookalikes. This kind of looks like, see, poison ivy. It's got 1, 2, 3 leaflets, and the middle leaflet has that longer stem. But this is actually called Hog Peanut. And Hog Peanut, you can kind of notice it doesn't have some of the shaping that the poison ivy does. So it doesn't have that thumb. It's much smoother here.
It has tendrils instead of hairs, like poison ivy.
You can kind of see it's much thinner, and in other areas there's only 2 little leaflets down there, but you can see 1, 2, 3 leaflets, Hog Peanut. And there's more Hog Peanut in here. See if you can see right here. There's some more Hog Peanut right there. Let's see if we can find some more Hog Peanut right there. Is there any poison ivy around? I don't see it yet, but we'll keep looking. I see 3 leaves. What do you think? Is this poison ivy? Well, this is definitely not poison ivy, but you can look underneath. If you see a woody stem, it's not going to be poison ivy. This is actually a type of oak seedling. So if they're small like this, they may trick you into thinking it's poison ivy, but it's just a tree seedling. We also have another little guy here that has leaves of 3. The middle leaflet's a little longer, but again, this is our Hog Peanut. I see leaves of 3. And the middle leaflet is longer than the other 2. Is this poison ivy? What do you think? It's quite a bit of things right here. So it does have some of the tooth marks on the edges, but you might notice it's a little bit hairier on the stem. This is actually one that does confuse quite a few people. You will also see some thorns, maybe in a couple of different places. So this is a type of raspberry or blackberry. We have quite a few of those on the property. However, it is not poison ivy. So if it's got thorns, it's really hairy like that, it's not going to be poison ivy. Now nearby, I'm seeing a lot of other stuff here. What about this one? Oh, I see 3 leaflets, 1, 2, 3. The longer middle stem. Is this poison ivy? Well, there's no thorns. It's not as hairy as the other one. That one is poison ivy. Right next to Virginia creeper. Can you find the poison ivy here or identify some of these? Let's do it together. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3 leaflets. The middle one is longer. Looks like it has a thumb. Poison ivy, yes or no? Yes, poison ivy. I've got another one down here. I see 1, 2, 3 leaflets. Middle one has a longer stem, but it doesn't have the toothiness that the others do. This one would be Hog Peanut. Now, if I go over here, way down here, I've got another one with 1, 2, 3 leaves. If I look at its stem though, it's hard to tell here, but its stem should have thorns. This would be more of our blackberries. And right next to it, oh, we've got 5 leaves on this one. This should be your Virginia creeper. But as you can see, we've got Virginia creeper, some blackberry, oh, some more poison ivy, and Hog Peanut. Whoop.
all right next to each other. So that's why it can sometimes be hard to identify these. But if you keep practicing, you'll get better. Sometimes you want to be careful where you sit.
Okay. So let me start my video again. There we go. So hopefully that could give you a few indications of what to look for when you're looking for poison ivy. A lot of people think of the rhymes, hairy vine, no friend of mine. Well, not all hairy vines, as you saw in that video, was actually poison ivy. A lot of Virginia creeper also have hairy vines. You also, a lot of people know the saying, leaves of three, let it be. Well, there's a lot of things out there with three leaves, and not all of them are poison ivy. I heard a story recently where somebody was saying they pulled all their raspberry bushes because they all thought it was poison ivy because they saw those three leaflets. So you're looking for that longer middle leaflet. The leaves can vary a little bit in shape, but a lot of them will have a mitten or a thumb, sometimes people say, but not all of them do. Um, they do have white fruit later in the year. So right now you saw the greenish flowers at the very beginning of that video. And that was just a hike that I took around the property on Tuesday. So that was pretty recent. But in more the later summer, fall, you're going to find white berries. And so the last saying is berries white take flight. Now, even though birds could eat these, we should not. um, but poison ivy can do well in just about almost every habitat, so it is something to look out for. The other thing to think about is that poison ivy can not just be green. You can get reddish leaves early in the spring. In the fall, you also can get some reddish, oranges, sometimes even yellowish leaves. And as I said, in the late summer, fall, you'll get those white berries. And then in the winter, you'll get more of the brown stems. But those brown stems, you're looking for fine hairs on those stems. If you see more thicker hairs, more spaghetti-like with those pads that I showed you, those adhesive discs, that's going to be your Virginia creeper. So you don't have to worry about that one. So those are some of the characteristics for identifying poison ivy. Now we're going to switch gears for just a second, and we're going to switch gears to poison sumac, because this is not one that most people have encountered. It is fairly prevalent in Michigan. It's definitely on the Institute property, but it's not as prevalent as poison ivy. So let's switch gears and do poison sumac. It's much shorter too.
So now I'm going to head into the wetlands to look for poison sumac. Poison sumac is not always found in the wetlands, but you know you have a healthy wetland if you do find poison sumac in your wetlands. So this is one of our other poisonous plants. It uses the same chemical that poison ivy does to have a reaction on our skin. So unlike other poisonous things, you usually think of poison as something you ingest or eat. We have named poison to poison ivy and poison sumac, but we generally don't ingest it, we just rub against it to get those poisons. So let's go and look for poison sumac. For poison sumac, you're looking for a large shrub or a small tree. So here you can kind of see we're not quite leafing out yet, but you should have 9 to 13 leaflets. The leaflets tend to be more pointed upward than flat out. So almost upward like this, then out. And there's more of an open branching structure than compared to some other trees. This is a really small version.
Okay. So for poison sumac, as I said, you're looking for a small shrub or small tree. Right now, it's really hard to find poison sumac because there's not a lot of poison sumacs that are leafing out, as you saw in that video. They're just starting to leaf out. But take into consideration, even if they haven't leafed out yet, just like poison ivy vines, you can also get it from the tree. Yes, good question. Do the leaves transmit the poison or can the bark? The bark can. I know of a researcher one year that was going through the wetlands looking for snakes and got into poison sumac and definitely rubbed up against it and had a bad reaction. So just like with poison ivy, where you can get that oil anywhere from the plant on the roots. I've known of people digging in the ground and getting it from the roots. You can get it from the stems, the vines, the leaves. The same with poison sumac. So it's another one you just don't want to touch it. It does have those compound leaves, so 9 to 13 leaflets per stem. Kind of reminds me of black walnut in that sense. Lots of little leaflets on a long stem. The leaves tend to be more rounded and then pointed at the ends. And I think of those little stems, those petioles, as we kind of talked about, as being reddish in color later. And the leaves will change to a red color later in the season. And you can kind of see that on that picture here. By open branching structure, I basically mean that you think of pine trees, you have a particular shape. It's a more open shaped. Um, it's hard to tell them when they don't have leaves. I get that. But definitely this plant likes the wetlands and wet areas. It can grow other places, just to let you know, but you're going to find it more in healthy wetlands, tamarack or larch wetlands. Those are its preferred habitat. But I'm not going to say it can't escape to other places. And this one also has white fruits as well. So those are some of whitish to greenish ways to identify these. All right, so these are some common questions that I get. So you think you might have touched poison ivy or poison sumac. What do you do? What is the one thing or the first thing that you should do? Well, the first thing you should do is go wash right away. So what you got is the oil on your skin, hopefully just your skin, and you want to get that oil off. Some people say don't use hot water because that's just going to aggravate it. So a lot of people say use really hard pressure, like garden hose type pressure, colder water. But you really just want to get it off. I've heard using dish soap helps because think of dish soap, you're trying to get oils off of maybe or grease off of pans. Well, it's an oil that you're trying to get off your skin. So dish soap can work. Technu is a type of soap that we use at the Institute that's really good at helping to get poison ivy or poison sumac off your skin. But very, very important, do not touch sensitive areas such as your eyes or other areas that are really sensitive. If you know you've gotten into it, it'll make it even worse in those areas. So those are some things if you have touched it. If you have touched it and didn't get the oil off right away, well, the rash will appear anywhere from 8 to 24 hours. And that just depends on the person, obviously. And it can last 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the person, how much they've been exposed to it, and how sensitive they are. If it gets bad enough, don't be afraid to go to the doctor, and they can help you find stuff to help manage the rash. So it can take a while to get rid of. All right, so this is another question I get. Can you spread the poison ivy rash? Well, the answer is no, you can't spread the rash, but you can spread the oils. So if you got the oils on your clothing that you were out hiking or walking, on your car seat or your car belt, seatbelt, excuse me, or your dog got it on them, or your cat that was outside and rubbed up against it, those oils can be transferred. And so just to let you know you want to wash those clothes right away. If you know you were in an area with poison ivy, make sure that you're wearing, of course, long pants if you're going to be walking in those areas so you don't get it on your skin, but then also wash that clothing right away. That way you don't have to worry about it getting transferred, those oils onto your skin, for example. All right, how do I get rid of the plant? So this is another one a question I get quite a bit. This is another saying, leaves of three, how I loathe thee. It's really hard to get rid of poison ivy sometimes. My first thing to say is never, ever, ever. Think of it this way: never, 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 never burn it. When you are burning something, all of those oils are going to be going into the air. You are then going to breathe that in. And so you're going to have a rash in your lungs. You do not want to go there. So never burn what you think might have poison ivy. That's the worst thing you can do. You can pull it with gloves, long sleeves, pants, and again, wash that clothing afterwards. You could spread black plastic over the plants, but you want to spread it over for a good amount of time because you want to kill off those plants. The black plastic will basically, when the sun comes down onto that black plastic, it'll help burn those plants and cover those plants so they can't get sun. You can herbicide it. Herbicide is one of those things you have to think about very carefully what's around. If you herbicide it, you can also harm other things that are around. Herbicide also can affect a lot of our amphibian friends. And so you really want to think carefully if you decide to go the chemical route. So those are just some of the fun things about poison ivy and poison sumac. All right, so let's review. Let's see if you learned anything for our poison ivy, or maybe you already knew this. All right, so which plant is poison ivy and how do you know? Point to your screen. We've got one here on the left, one here on your right. If you feel like typing into the chat or the comments, left or right, you can do so. But I see two plants, one on the left, one on the right. Point to which one you think is poison ivy or type it into the chat or comments. Great. All right, it should be the one on the right. The one on the left has some thorns you can kind of see, has more sawtooth edges, so this is going to be probably one of your berries. So very good. All right, let's try another one. Which plant is poison ivy and how do you know? So we've got one on the left again and one on the right. Which one do you think is poison ivy? Let's think about that. Left or right? Yes, I like that people are just putting R's in for right or left. All right, yep, so people got it right. The one on the right is poison ivy, even though it doesn't have that green. This is a really early spring looking one. And the one on the left has 5 leaflets, so it's Virginia creeper. All right, red leaves in the spring. Which one is poison ivy? So there's one here on the left and one here on the right again. Any ideas for right or left? Oh, we've got some quick people. Yes, the one on the right. The one on the left is a oak tree that sometimes look red also in the spring. Couple more. 2 vines with berries in late summer. Do you remember our saying? Which one is poison ivy? What color of berries does poison ivy have? Is it the one here? We're going to say that's going to be the left, or the white ones on the right. Yeah, white. Very good, everyone. Yep, the one on the right or the white ones. Those are the poison ivy. Virginia creeper, which is that one that I said is a very much a look-alike, doesn't have white berries. All right, and last one. It has leaves of 3. Is it poison ivy? Just type in yes or no. What do you think? This is a little tricky one, but yes or no. Leaves of 3. Oh, I can't trick you. You are correct. It is not poison ivy. And if you looked really, really close, you could see some of those little discs right here that helps the vine attach to the tree. Oh, I lied. There is one more. Last one, 3 vines. Which is poison ivy? I've got one here on the left. I've got one in the center, and I've got one on the right. So left, center, or right. Poison ivy, I can't trick anyone here. You're getting it all right. So yes, the one on the right is poison ivy. We've got Hog Peanut on the left, and we've got Virginia creeper in the middle. Congratulations! Now you can go outside and have fun, safely, hopefully, and knowing your poison ivy. So thank you so much for joining me, and go have fun outside. Bye, everyone.